G'day and welcome to another episode of Kiwi Car Life. And this is the story of one of the strangest and most brilliant engine families ever made, the Volkswagen VR engine. Today we're going to be diving into how and why Volkswagen created this weird engine layout, and then we'll be hitting the road in three of the most attainable examples: a VR5 Bora, a VR6 Audi TT, and a W8 Passat. So strap in and enjoy the story and soundtrack of the Volkswagen VR engine. First, let's start by defining what a VR engine is. We of course all know what an inline engine is, traditionally found in 3, 4, 5 and 6 cylinder configurations. Naturally, all of the cylinders are in a line, like in this E46 330i. This of course makes these engines reasonably cheap to manufacture because you only need one cylinder head and one set of camshafts. However, they do have their limitations. Throughout history, inline engines have generally maxed out at 6 or maybe 8 cylinders, because any longer than that and they put too much of a twisting force on the crankshaft at higher RPMs, and they become way too long to fit in a car. So what if you want more than just 6 cylinders? Well, of course, you join two inline engines together at the crank. 2 straight 3s, you get a V6, 2 straight 4s, a V8, 2 straight 5s, a V10, and 2 straight 6s, a V12. However, by way of analogy, if you're Volkswagen in the early 1990s and you want to fit a powerful 6-cylinder engine under the bonnet of your shoe drawer sized Golf or Corrado's engine bay, well, you can't use an inline 6 because it's too long and leaves no room for the gearbox, and you can't use a V6 because it's too square. So then CEO Ferdinand Piëch came up with the VR engine family. VR stands for Fahrzeugmotor, or V inline engine. As the name suggests, VR engines have just one cylinder head and one set of camshafts like an inline engine, but these cylinders are still arranged in a V shape, just with a very narrow crank angle, only around 15 degrees rather than 60 or 90 like in a normal V engine. And the advantages of the VR6 immediately become apparent when you take a look at my two cars. My 330i over here has a 3-litre inline 6, and if we measure the valve cover, which gives a crude estimate to how large the engine is, we see that it's 70 centimetres long and 25 centimetres across. My VR6 is also 25 centimetres across, but it's 15 centimetres shorter, despite offering more displacement and more power. Simply put, the appeal of a VR6 engine when compared with a V6 or inline 6 is that you can fit 6 cylinders of fury under the bonnet of a small front-wheel drive engine bay. And man, it works well. I do love my BMW inline 6s, but this, well, it just sounds better. It's gritty and sonorous, and well, just take a listen. The VR6 in this TT makes it feel exotic. It makes it feel so much more alive than just an ordinary 4-cylinder. Unlike ultralight sports cars, which are easily upset by bumps in the road, this just feels absolutely planted, and the 4-wheel drive system works kind of like a limited slip diff front-wheel drive car to just drag you through these corners remarkably well. And you can even turn on the stiff suspension and deploy the electric retractable spoiler back there, and the whole package really is just an absolute delight, especially with a super close ratio 6-speed manual transmission. That engine makes this car. However, in a sensible family sedan, a 250 horsepower VR6 engine is perhaps a little bit overkill. So how about lobbing off a cylinder and dropping the displacement down from 3.2 to 2.3 litres? Well, that's how you end up with this car here, the VR5 Bora. Like an Audi RS3 or Volvo S60R, it has that classic 5-cylinder noise, but with the VR engine warble, and so as a result it just resonates like no other 5-cylinder engine. A few years ago I reviewed a VR5 Golf, which was basically straight piped, and it honestly sounded like a Lamborghini, just with 170 horsepower rather than 500. These days, a modern mid-spec Bora or Jetta like this would have a crummy 1.5 turbo under there, but back in the early 2000s you could get this with a 5-cylinder that revs all the way to 7 grand. And in a compact sedan like this, while it does understeer quite a bit because it is of course just front-wheel drive, it is not a slow car, man, and it makes a simply glorious noise while doing it. This car truly comes from the crack era of Volkswagen, where instead of doing the sensible thing like everyone else and putting in a reliable, simple 4-cylinder engine, Volkswagen went, no, not even in like a Passat or an Audi or, you know, a nicer car, just in a Bora, which is basically a Golf, we're going to put a VR5 engine in it, because why not? And today we are left with one of the most affordable weird engine cars that you can get, and while it doesn't look like anything special, it handles pretty well, does understeer a bit, oh there it is, keep the front end in check. It sounds absolutely incredible, and it's a nice car. Look at this interior, it's plush and comfortable with these lovely leather seats. What a masterpiece, I love it. However, the VR5 and VR6 are far from the end of the road for VR engines, because if you join two inline engines together, you get a V engine, but if you join two VR engines together, well, you get a W engine. Notable examples include the W12 used in the A8, Phaeton, Continental and Touareg. And of course the W16 found with 4 turbochargers bolted to it in the Bugatti Veyron. There was also a W10 found in an E39 M5 test mule that Ferdinand Piech used as his personal daily driver. But if you want a W engine that you can realistically buy affordably, you'll be looking at one of these. This is a B5.5 W8 Passat, and it is an extremely odd car. First of all, it is the last Passat to have the engine mounted longitudinally. But second of all, this is one of just 3 manual W8s in New Zealand and one of only 424 manuals worldwide, making this rarer than a Lexus LFA. But aside from the very cool manual transmission in this, the engine is what truly makes this car special. If you join two 2-litre VR4 engines together, well, you get this 4-litre W8. Paired with a 6-speed manual transmission with surprisingly short gears and a 4-motion all-wheel drive system, which is basically Audi's Quattro system, this is an absolute masterpiece to drive. The best thing about this W8 though is that while certainly in automatic form these cars are basically worthless today, this engine, the 4-litre W8, was the starting block for what eventually became the 6-litre W12 found in the Bentley Continental GT, and the quad-turbocharged W16, which is basically 2 of these engines joined together with 4 turbos bolted to it, used in the Bugatti Veyron. 4-motion grip, really short first gear, so it just hammers off the line. I reckon this thing would do 0 to 100 in under 6 seconds, eh? It's a pretty quick car. And while the R36 Passat that essentially replaced this is objectively a far superior car, that doesn't sound like this and doesn't feature a 6-speed manual transmission. But the sad part is, the W8 lasted just 3 years. It was gone by 2004. The VR5 died in 2006, and the legendary 3.2 and 3.6 litre VR6 found in the Audi A3 and TT and Volkswagen Golf R32 and Passat R36 died in 2010. And all of these engines were replaced by crummy 2-litre turbos. But it's easy to see why. Back in the 1990s, if you wanted to make more power, well, you needed more cylinders, and a VR engine was a genius way of fitting a lot of cylinders under the bonnet of a small front-wheel drive car. But the byproduct of all those cylinders was a fuel economy of 12 litres per 100k. 2-litre turbos from today are cheaper to make, in some regards simpler, and they are far, far more efficient than these dinosaurs from a bygone era. I don't know about you though, but this to me was peak automobilia, when cars weren't just nice to drive, but they felt like they had a soul. Modern cars today are better than these in every single metric, and yet, if given the chance, I'd still take a VR engine any day of the week.